Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pet Hub's Facebook Live. This month, we are talking about National Disaster Preparedness Month. Whew, and as I was saying offline when we were talking just before the show to our fabulous guests, man, it seems like we're in the middle of a bunch of natural disasters right when we're talking about preparedness for those natural disasters. So our timing could not be better for this. And I want to make sure that we have a chance to introduce everybody that's here on our show today with us, because we have folks from Code 3 and we also have folks from the National Animal Care and Control Association. So let's get started. Folks from the National Animal Care and Control Association, Jerica, why don't you get us started? Introduce yourself. Tell us what you do.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Jerica Owen. I'm the Director of Partnerships and Programs for the National Animal Care and Control Association, NACA. I'm working on all kinds of programs and partnerships, really. So we're really excited to be doing this today again with Code 3 and with Pet Hub.
Fantastic. And Spencer, tell us about yourself.
I'm Spencer Conover. I am also on the board of directors with the National Animal Care and Control Association. I currently serve as the assistant director for Pasco County Animal Services, just north of Tampa, Florida. So fitting, I am in hurricane country. So I'm sure we'll talk about that a bunch today as well.
Maybe talk about hurricanes today. I'm not sure. And then Eric from Code 3. Tell us about yourself and Code 3.
Hi, I'm Eric Thompson. I'm the Executive Director for Code 3 Associates, and I'm also a Senior Instructor for ASAR Training and Response. Code 3 is a national disaster team that works primarily with states and counties on technical animal rescue and evacuation. And then ASAR Training and Response is the training entity that trains animal welfare professionals to FEMA resource typing levels.
Fantastic. And Eric, I'm going to start with you, because you literally just got home from being in the field dealing with a current huge natural disasters we're having. Tell us about what you just were doing so that people can kind of get an idea about what it is that you do.
Yeah, it's been a busy month for Code 3. We started out at the Caldor fire, and we're working primarily large animal and livestock issues, getting evacuations done, feed in place programs out there. And then, of course, Hurricane Ida decided to bubble up in the Gulf. And one of the states that we serve is Louisiana. And Louisiana Department of Ag mobilized us to come down for Hurricane Ida. So we went from the Caldor fire and stopped in Denver to refuel the semi truck and ended up down in Baton Rouge on the heels of Ida. And we were down working the parishes in lower Louisiana for the last week and just demobilized. And I've been home a whole 48 hours.
And you are kindly asking all the natural disasters to just chill and wait
Mother
for you
Nature
to
can take a break this week. I've had plenty of fun with her the last 3 weeks, but we need a little time apart.
Yeah. And so we were kind of rattling off like some of the huge disasters that everybody's known about. They're in the news right now. So you just mentioned Caldor fire. We live in the Pacific Northwest. We are surrounded by fires literally right now. It's a very smoky day. You can't go outside. Hurricane Ida. We had tornadoes and flooding in New York and Jersey. I mean, like what? You never hear about that before. We had a huge collapse of a building in Miami, which is certainly not expected. I mean, we don't have building collapse season like we do hurricane and fire season by any means. And then we've got flooding in all over the place, and not just in the United States, but even Europe is having extreme flooding right now. And on top of everything else, we've got this lovely pandemic that's happening. So it's been rather complicated, I can imagine, from your perspective as professionals. And I think what the main purpose of today is to say, like, how can we as pet parents, as conscientious pet parents, best prepare so that when you, the professionals, are out there inevitably having to deal with the aftermath of these disasters, how can we be prepared to basically make your job easier and help our pets stay safer? So let's start there. And I want to start with something that, we have Go Packs here, scram bags, like there's a bunch of different names for them. But I would love it if we could kind of talk about that very essential grab and go bag that every pet parent should have and update all the time. So who'd like to take this about what should you have in that pack?
I can start with this one. Absolutely. So every parent should, have that pet kit ready to go, just like you would have, prepared for your family. I think it's very easy to just keep reminding and saying we should have this pet kit, but it comes down to actually getting it done, right? And so if you start with something that's pretty basic and you just have, your basic first aid kit for pets, which includes things like gloves, cotton swabs, pet safe antiseptic lotion, some powder and scissors, some grooming wipes, things like that, in your first aid kit. And then, of course, your other essentials as well. You need some extra food and some water, any walking equipment, whether that be harnesses for pets or, halters and riding equipment for horses, vaccination records, bowls, buckets, any sanitation items that you're going to need, poop bags, trash bags, towels. And then, you want to have things like your carriers for your pets ready to go, and your trailers for your horses, and make sure that they're comfortable with that kind of stuff. It's really hard to load a horse at the very last second when it's go time, and they're not comfortable being loaded. So making sure that, you practice those things. And the other thing too that we're recommending is photos of people and their pets together. Oftentimes during disaster, people are separated from their pets, and by having those photos, it supports a quicker reunification in the field or in the shelter, wherever you're able to find your pet.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, that whole practicing thing, like cats, my dog goes in and out of her crate, no problem. The cats are another thing entirely. So we have to have that continual practice of getting them in and out of the crates and whatever. It also helps when you need to go to the veterinarian on occasion too. The other thing about cats that we found really great are these boxes that come pre-made. They're little kitty litter boxes. They only last for maybe a week or two, but they're pre-made. They're in this little tiny boxes, and we just have a stack of those in our garage. And because that's the other thing, if you have to hit the road and like drive for 4 or 5 hours, or stay at a hotel, you better have that kitty litter taken care of as well. Anything else to add, Spencer or Eric, on that?
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is, for sure, with vaccinations and with medications for your pets is being prepared ahead of time. What we're seeing right now is twofold. One, with many natural disasters, you don't know when they're going to strike. When you have a building collapse, when you have a fire, you don't know when you're going to have to evacuate. Even with something like a hurricane that we deal with very prominently here in Florida, when there's only a couple days heads up notice, what we're noticing in the industry right now, try to get your pet into a veterinarian right now for a checkup to get their meds refilled. I don't know if it's because of COVID or what's going on with hiring, but they're about 6 weeks out on a wellness appointment for your veterinarian right now. So if you're looking to get your pet in real quick to get the meds refilled or get updated on vaccinations or get a booster for a rabies shot, you're looking at 5 to 6 weeks lead time on most veterinary clinics right now. So get in now, make sure your pet is up to date and you have those medications and those vaccinations that you need in case you do have to evacuate. That's one thing that we're seeing right now is on the veterinary side. It's been hard to plan, and planning is so important.
Yeah. And make sure that you have those things properly recorded as well, so that if you do have to go quickly, a lot of people have a little paper thing that has all the vaccinations on it, and those are great, but they're also not necessarily that convenient. Putting that stuff online, I'm always going to plug Pet Hub, obviously, because we've got the free online profile. You can put the vaccination records on there. You can have multiple pictures, all these kinds of things too. Put that stuff down someplace that it's going to be easy, quick to grab. Even if you're doing something like a Google Doc for yourself, scanning that information in, so that it's someplace where if that paper, because hurricane, water, not necessarily a good thing together.
Yeah, the other thing with that is Jerica mentioned a photo, and like many people, I'm sure we all have 80 million pictures of our pets on our phone, right? Right. Eric, you were just down in Louisiana, man. How many people didn't have power? 100% of people, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I had this one time. It's like, oh, my insurance card is on an app on my phone. I get pulled over by the cop and my phone's dead, right? Now all of a sudden you don't have insurance. Have those printed veterinary records, those printed photos. It seems silly, but
and have them in a Ziploc baggie that stays in the go bag.
You're going to come across a situation where, oh, that's on my phone, and oh man, I'm in the middle of a natural disaster and I can't charge my phone.
Yeah. And as convenient as it is to have them online, one of the other things that we have out there that, again, it kind of helps with that it's not on my phone, but somebody else can access if they want to, is get identification on the outside of your pet's travel crate. Get identification so that they don't have to reach into a crate if you're in a situation where it's a shelter or whatever. And like we have a crate card that goes to the profile so that they can access it. But then two, go ahead and Ziploc baggie that your pet's information onto the outside of their travel crate if you're having to go to a shelter situation as well. So anyway, lots of things there. Anything else you want to add, Eric?
No, Jarek and Spencer both have been right on the money with all of that. The only thing I think I would add that we really try to encourage people is that once they have this together, and you mentioned the sheet of paper with that information, have a host location on that piece of paper that may have an address of where you're going to go, especially out of the area. So you have it's great. Well, I shouldn't say it's great. Sometimes it is a necessity to rely on mass care services to provide sheltering for you. However, if you can take care of yourself and if you can evacuate, take your pets with you all the time, and go to a host location outside of that impact zone, having that information to that host location, that friend, family member, whoever it's going to be. So if you don't make it out of the evacuation zone, you can call them or hopefully get a line to them and say, hey, you have all the information I need for my pet, or here's where my safety deposit box is, whatever information what that host location is, have that information outside your impact area.
Yeah, we also just talked a little bit too about this goes into preparation. When we were looking at potentially having to evacuate, we were very lucky. We have so much family in the state that's within quick driving distance. We have a place to land. So many of the people that we were talking to, they're looking for hotels. Well, guess what? So is everybody else looking for hotels. And so knowing ahead of time, especially like in a fire situation as you have here, or one of these quick earthquake, we were just talking about, hey, we're just waiting for that earthquake to happen, having to have some place that you can go to. Preparing ahead of time, how to know where you can go. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that sometimes is very confusing when you're in that moment of, I got to make a decision right now, where I'm going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's all in the preparedness place. It's really interesting because we're seeing technology really influence evacuation routes. Technology and the tracking of cell phones. Google has done a great job, and other mapping apps have done a great job of watching contraflow and watching people evacuate and creating different routes. So Google doesn't just Google Maps, and I'm just using Google Maps as a reference, is it doesn't tell a million people to go get on one road. Technology now will tell you this road is full. Here's an alternate route. Here's a third route. Here's another way to go. But having that in your mind, and I will tell you, I have plenty of directionally challenged responders that I can't say north, east, or west. I have some that say left or right, near or far, go that way. So trying to find that communication of where you actually want to be is really important. But then, I will tell you, in this last hurricane, it was in a resource challenged area. People could not get out. And we see lots of criticism of, hey, you had 4 days notice. Why didn't you get out of the way? Because they couldn't. They just did not have the transportation needs to get out of the way. And we still, I won't go into all the different stories, but we still see problems from 20 years ago coming up today with not getting the information, not being a priority, and not understanding how the mass care system can really help people and their pets.
Yeah, and can you explain mass care? Because you've used that term a couple of times now. Can you talk about what you mean by mass care?
Yeah, well, think about people care. So mass care is people care, and that is everything from food, water, transportation, housing, medical issues, senior living issues, anything that has to do with people falls under mass care in the emergency support function structure. And actually, pets have a place in mass care. Most mass care planners actually plan for people and their pets to some degree, but then they kick it off to the experts like Spencer, like Jerica, to help fill in those gaps, because they're not the animal experts, but they do talk with the animal experts, because there is obviously that connection that many people are not going to evacuate unless mass care has a pet plan in place.
Mm-hmm. For instance, here in Pasco County, we operate dozens of potential mass care shelters in emergency situations based on the severity of the emergency. Only a handful are pet friendly. And so with that in mind, we always go with the motto of a pet's going to be better in a home during a natural disaster, even if it's not your home. Like Eric alluded to earlier, if you can find a place outside of the impact zone for you and your pets to go that is not mass care, that's going to be priority number one. Obviously, there is support there for you and your family with the county, and most counties, if not all counties, have that option. But if you can find that option of safer in at someone's home, a friend, hey, can I ride out the storm in your garage, in your basement, something like that? That's going to be better than one of those, than a mass care situation. Not that it's not there, but.
And can we talk a little bit about, we talk about having emergency evacuation plans for and we practice with fire with the kids and all these kind of things. Can we talk about what about the fur kids? How do they fit in? I mean, what are those things that, because a lot of us, of course, aren't going to think about this until we're in that moment and be like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do here. I don't know, what should my procedure be? So can we talk a little bit about that? The actual, I just got the level 3 evacuation notice that go, 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 go. What should I be prepared to do at that moment?
Can I make a suggestion real quick? Everybody needs to know where your cat carriers are. We send these animals home in a carrier, and the number one issue we see is I don't have some way to pick my cat. And so if I had to make one suggestion is dog people, man, they know where the leash, the harness, the dog bowl, the water bowl, the vaccination records, category 5 hurricanes barreling down on you, and nobody has a cat carrier. And so they all went home in a cat carrier, and if you need one, they're available at your local shelter, at your local pet store, and know where they are in your house for sure. That is going to be one of the biggest things is when push comes to shove, even if your cat's not okay with it, it's a temporary thing, and you got to have that cat in a cat carrier because it's not only what's going to be safest for everybody around if you have to use a mass care situation, but it's what's safest for your cat too, right?
Right.
It's cat, small dog, whatever it is. That small animal needs that safe carrier to have. And you got to know where it is first and foremost.
That's hilarious. I actually know a friend who, a true story, we were told to evacuate because flooding in college, and she didn't have anything for her. She had 2 guinea pigs. She didn't have anything for guinea pigs, so they got shoved into a backpack.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, man.
Because the dorm was going to flood, so the guinea pigs went into the backpack. But yeah, no, totally. What else? What other kinds of things to do, that won't occur to you until you're in that moment of panic that would be helpful if we thought through right now?
Yeah, don't cheat. When you're going to practice with your animals, wind them up. So many people say, oh, I practiced putting my cat in the carrier. Well, it was 8:30 at night. Everybody was sleeping. They went right in. No. Go chase the cat around the house for at least 5 minutes. Go out there and scare the horse with a Walmart bag and then try to get him in there. So many times people say, oh, don't worry about it. The bird's going to get in the cage. The cat's going to get in the box. And then we go in there, and the first thing they do is want to go run and hide, and we don't have time to go dig them out from between box spring and mattress because that's where they climbed up into. Now, I will tell you, I had a family out in the Caldor fire that said they trained their ducks, and that all we had to do was find the purple cat carrier, Spencer, because that's what came to mind. They said the purple cat carrier is out in the barn, just set it in, and we're like, okay. So the fire had burned through. The ducks had survived. They were on social media, so we saw them. So the family asked us to go in. We found the purple carrier. It survived the fire. We put it on the ground, and I'll be darned if those 2 ducks didn't go right in. They were off.
That is good preparedness. I love it. That's fantastic.
It doesn't matter what species it is. You can train a duck. So no excuses. So wind those animals up and make it real for them.
I love that.
I think I'll mention. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, having identification, is for all types of animals too, not just, your dogs or cats. But, microchips, we've talked about that before. But you can microchip tortoises, you can microchip reptiles, you can microchip, different animals. They have different alternatives for large animals as well, main tags or things like that, or have during one of the fires a couple years ago here in California, they were using lipstick and different things to mark halters or permanent markers on halters and using lipstick on the on the bodies or whatever. So it's really important to make sure that you look at all different types of identification for all different types of animals. Just because it's a bird or a different guinea pig that you're running out with in a backpack, you still want to make sure that it's identified.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that we're talking about a lot of different animals than just dogs and cats, and you need to have plans for everything. I mean, fish. What's your plan there? I don't know what the plan there would be.
When Hurricane Irma came through in 2017, 5 pet-friendly shelters were opened in Pasco County. There were, I think, over 20 people-friendly shelters open, and all 20 ended up with animals in it. because there was every animal under the sun, giant tegu lizards and fish. And you don't realize until you're in the moment that, oh my gosh, yeah, I have a carrier for my cat. I have a leash for my dog. But what am I going to do, with my pet armadillo in the backyard? What's going to go on with that? So you don't realize. Yeah. So like Eric said, don't cheat, man. Don't just come up with a plan for the cat or the dog. If you got a tank full of fish, figure out what you're going to do with the fish, for sure.
Yeah. And I would also say, make it a family effort, especially if you've got, don't just mix everything on you, because there's been times, we actually saw this just here recently with some evacuation level 3s. It was happening during the day. Parent was at work, kid was at home alone. Like, your children also, obviously, if they're a certain age, you'd also know, like, what's the plan? How am I supposed to get ready? And how can I help with mom and dad getting these pets ready and stuff like that? And if we could talk to you about the communication, because you mentioned that, writing using lipstick on the haunches of the horse or something like that. But can we talk to you about the communication that we can do, like, beforehand, even before the disaster hits, if we know it's coming, particularly, that will help first responders know there's no animals here, or maybe there are animals that for whatever reason you're not able to round up and get out. Like, we have a thing with cattle in here. Like what kind of things can you do as that pet parent to help communicate with first responders that may have to come back and be trying to see if there's anybody left to save, that kind of thing?
Yeah, hopefully the area has given a call number for animal control or animal services, somebody that's taking the lead that you can report, hey, I was on vacation. I'm not there to evacuate my pets. I know they're at my neighbor's house, or they're doing a feed and place program. Mm-hmm. So definitely that's preferred, is find out who the animal contact is taking over your area and give them a call and let them know what's going on, versus social media. I will tell you, every time, and including this time, people throw it on Facebook and expect it to be solved, and it just doesn't work that way. And we have people contact Code 3 on the Facebook page through our website that says, hey, there's animals at this address. And our response is, please contact your local animal services and notify those officers, because they're the ones running boots on the ground, and they have the authority to go get that pet. We only support local jurisdiction. So if Spencer wanted Code 3 in there, Spencer's the boss. We ride with his officers, or we follow his officers, and we only have the authority of what Spencer would say, okay, this is what you're blessed to do. We don't supersede the authority, and we can't self-deploy. So communication with that animal services unit in your area is critical.
I also think you talked to, Eric mentioned it earlier with ESF, the ESF functions of the different organizations, is the understanding of the communication with your local animal control, that during an activation or during an emergency, standard procedures or standard operations of that organization might be suspended. For instance, when we go full ESF, if somebody calls us and says, hey, there's a stray dog running around my neighborhood, man, there's a Cat 4 hurricane bearing down on us, that we got to get these folks out of this flood zone. And so the understanding of that communication and working with your local animal control, I'm not necessarily, I think one thing we prided ourselves on as an organization is not necessarily saying no, but hey, if you found a dog, great. Here's the 5 things you can do to try to help get that dog safe and get it back home. In the meantime, if you still got it after the storm passes, or you still got it after the fire, or you still got it after we figured out the sinkhole situation, then we can talk about getting back to standard function. But that level of communication between the citizen and animal services, animal control at that point is paramount, for sure.
I'd love it. Maybe, Spencer, you can talk to this, because you've had, I think, a lot of experience with this, with running these shelters that are animal-friendly shelters, or not, maybe. Mm-hmm. A lot of the fear of, like, I don't want to leave my house because I've got my pet and I don't know what's going to happen if I go to the shelter. It's that reluctance to leave the house because you don't know what to expect on the other side. Even though the shelter is there, you're not going for whatever reason. Can you kind of help demystify what that experience could be?
Absolutely. First and foremost, it's not Disneyland. They're not, the animals aren't coming to doggy daycare. We're not going to play in the big pond out back. When we activate these shelters, it is for true emergency situations, and we want to make sure that we as Pasco County keep our Pasco County citizens alive. And NACA feels the same way, is human and animal life first. With that being said, every single one of our facilities is staffed with an animal control officer, an animal care technician from the shelter, and a certified veterinary technician. And so with that being said, if something were to happen, the right people, your animals and your pets in those situations are in the right hands if something were to happen. And so that's one thing we've had with citizens that show up at some of these shelters is it's been a positive experience, at least as much as it could be, right? You don't want to evacuate your home. You don't want to leave. But, you know, as long as I've been involved, there's never been a dog fight. There's never been a cat that's gone missing. There's never been a situation where somebody's tipped over the fish bowl and the fish has gotten out, you know? So it's trained professionals. And as part of our job description in hiring anybody with not only animal services with the county, but the county in general, activation and participation in our ESF functions is part of our job description, and we take pride in that. And so it's not going to be Disneyland, but you and your pet are going to be okay if it comes to that, and you do need that mass care.
I've ran quite a few shelters that are either co-located or cohabitated, where the owners can either sleep in the same room as their pet, or they can be, in adjoining rooms where the pets have to be separated from the people. So in my experience, it really depends on where the shelter is set up and what they allow. But I mean, Spencer's right. It's not, definitely not Disneyland, but there's plenty of resources, oftentimes trained professionals, and my experience has been that a lot of people find comfort in being able to stay with their pet, or being able to visit their pet on a daily basis, or be able to sit next to their kennel all day while they're watching the news or trying to get information on their home, and if maybe when they can get back into their homes. So definitely, and being partnered up a lot of times with Red Cross or FEMA, you have those human resources as well. So you can get food, you can get a clean shower, you can get information on how to get disaster assistance funding and that kind of stuff. So so they are really great resources when they're necessary.
Mm-hmm. I would like to talk too about, because as we're talking through these things, I'm thinking, some of these disasters, obviously hurricane, 4 days notice. Yeah, there's going to be reasons that maybe it still caught you unawares, but you still had notice. And then there's things like earthquake. Eric, you probably got us all set up for an earthquake now, because you said all we need now is an earthquake. But I mean,
knock on wood.
Yeah, we're blaming you if it happens. But I mean, what do you do when you get in that situation, or like what just happened in Miami with the horrific collapse of that building? You're in that situation. It just happened. You've got pets, or maybe you've been separated from your pet. I mean, those are two very distinct situations, but what do you do now when you're in that crisis disaster situation?
Yeah, that changes things dramatically, and it should change your priority list. But the priority list is your number one. You got to figure out the life safety issue first, and then prioritize your pets. Now, I know lots of pet people will argue that no, I'm risking my lives for my pet. Got it. I'm not going to argue that with you. But if you electrocute yourself, or if you open your door and the rest of the house collapses on you, you're not going to be able to help your pet. So obviously, in exigent circumstances or emergency circumstances like that, life safety is still number one. And trying then to get yourself calm, focus a little bit, and say, okay, is it better to stay in place right now and wait for communications to find out what's going on? Am I safer here, or is it time to move? And it really is that poignant of you're not going to have an emergency shelter to go to. You may have to go live in your car for 12 hours. But the basics of, do I have water? Do I have power? Is there a hazard? And then can I secure my pet? Because your pet is in panic mode. So getting that pet in its safe place, in a crate, so at least it's off your plate right now. You can come back and do food and water later. But panicked pets often run off in those situations and go hide, and then we'll never recover. Well, the chances of recovery are smaller. So as soon as you do a quick life safety check, get that pet secure, and then start to figure out the next steps.
It's like being on the plane, right? They secure your mask first, right? Then you can do your kids. It's, we get it all the time with pet owners. They love their pets more than they love themselves. But you're right, man. It's you got to make sure you're good, and then we can go back for your pets. Absolutely.
Yep.
And if there's ever a situation that more lends itself to do not let your pets run around naked or unchipped, it is that unforeseen immediate disaster that can happen. I mean, my pet never leaves my side. Oh, he doesn't like to wear a collar when he's inside, or insert whatever excuse you've created for not having your external ID on the pet, which is the fastest and best way to get reconnected with them, or at the very least have that updated microchip. Your excuses become invalid when you've got that immediate crisis that happens.
Well, and like Eric mentioned earlier, your pet's going crazy, right? Because you're in an emergency. It's at level 10. And so the last thing that you as a pet owner want to add to an earthquake or a sinkhole or a fire is getting bit by your pet, right? Now all of a sudden you got a bite case on your hand, bite report on your hand, and you're adding to that. So making sure that you have the tools for the job, you understand your pet's behavior, and you have everything you need, and you can get yourself calm in that situation, calm enough so that your pet can feed off of that and you guys can stay safe. That's so key.
Yeah, and I think too, I love your thing about living in your car for 12 hours, Eric, because we actually have little mini emergency kits for our pets in the car. Now, we usually use them for lost dogs that we're finding on the side of the road in order to lure them over and put a leash on them. But again, having that, the bottle of water, the stinky treats, the spare leash in your car, all super important things to do when you get to crises like this. Can we talk a little bit about, and we've talked about a lot of them along the way, but let's talk about like one of those big mistakes that people are making during these disasters.
Man, I'll tell you.
Time?
Yeah. So on the next episode, we're going to talk about common mistakes in disasters and how to prevent them. No, I'll tell you, even after all my time in the field, I still visited with people. These are the hard stories. I still visit with people that say, I put my 2 dogs in my pickup truck because it was taller and I thought they'd survive the storm. The water got so high, they drowned in the truck. I mean, the stories of animals left behind in houses this time because they didn't think the water was going to get that high was astounding. What's even sad is that there's still some culture down in some areas where pets were left in cages on the grass, didn't survive, and we saw the cage and the carcass set out with the trash, literally set out with the trash. So, there's still all makes and models. There's still all kinds of people out there. There's still all kinds of animals. And we can preach all day, take them with you. But the common mistakes are not intentional 99% of the time. Is that they thought that was the safest place for their pet because they didn't have a place to take it. So, when they said I put it in the pickup truck because I thought for sure that was high enough, and it was not. Those types are the saddest stories.
I think for us, one of the big issues is the mentality of it'll never happen to me, right? It's never going to happen to me. And we're seeing now more prevalent cases of natural disasters everywhere. Obviously, in Florida, we have a hurricane come through at 3:00 every afternoon. But, the earthquakes and the fires and all of that, we talked about it in one of these more recent Facebook Lives about pet safety and keeping your pets in your home. And it's like we see so many lost pets. I was giving my dog a bath and I never put the collar back on. Like you never know when this is going to happen. And so for us, that are in the industry, it's very, very simple stuff of, keep the microchip up to date, keep the collar on your pet, have the carrier handy. And when you see, we just recently took 50 dogs from a shelter in Gulfport, Mississippi, humane society of Southern Mississippi from Hurricane Ida. These were not animals misplaced by the hurricane. These were animals in the shelter. We needed to clear space because we knew there was going to be animals misplaced by the hurricane. And the reality is, if people make these minor steps now, you can prevent your animal from being misplaced in a shelter. Like Eric mentioned earlier, your pets, so many pets, they wouldn't go missing. And then they do, right? But if you have the collar on, if you have the microchip up to date, if you contact your local animal control, you can prevent your pet from taking up a spot in the animal shelter, and you can prevent your pet from going missing. It's just these little things that you don't think are big until that earthquake hits,
And Eric mentioned earlier, just practicing and following through with actually making the kit. You know what needs to go in it. You have your bucket ready. You have everything, you know what you need. It's following through and getting it done, and then making sure it's updated. Make sure to, just like we do with smoke detectors, right? You time it with daylight savings, or you time it with some other time of year. Just following through, practicing loading horses, practicing loading ducks into purple crates, practicing whatever it is. Anything is so important to make sure that when it is time to go, everybody's ready to go, and it's a smooth exit strategy.
Is that on your Facebook, Eric? I want to see the ducks, man. Where are the ducks?
Yeah, I need to see those the purple crated ducks.
Go to the Code 3 Facebook page. You'll see the ducks. Yeah,
We'll find that, and we'll put a link to that in the comments here after the show is done here. And I want to say too, I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in northwest Oklahoma, Panhandle up there, and it's definitely a livestock country. There's more cows in town than there are people, and I remember being told repeatedly, like, oh, the animals will find a way to save themselves. They can take care of themselves. Don't worry about it. And including dogs. That was like kind of the mentality about, oh, he'll be fine. He's gonna be safer than I am because he knows how to protect himself. It's his instinct. And I know that as I grew up, that never set right with me. But as I think about it, like even livestock, I mean, and we talked about the ducks and tortoises and things like that. These animals have now grown to rely on you as a human. And it's not like they're out in the wild and dealing purely on instinct. Their instinct out now is to look to you for guidance and care. So I think we have to kind of remember that. And some of those old, be they wives' tales or whatever, aren't necessarily holding true. I would like it, just while we're wrapping it up, I mean, this has been a fantastic conversation, but I'd like it if we could, I mean, you said you were going to tell me stories, Eric, but I know you all have a lot of stories, and some of them are very sad. I'd love, though, if we can hear like some of maybe the most unique, most amazing kind of like, holy moly, either a rescue story or a situation that like, wow, I never saw that coming type of a thing.
I'll give you the happiest story we had in Hurricane Ida. We got deployed down in southern Jefferson Parish, which is Lafitte, and Lafitte is along the river and was flooded. And we got brought in right on the heels of the storm. So storm is pulled out. We're in on day 2 because day 1 is always life safety. And we go in day 2. We have addresses. So we have the ACOs with us from Jefferson Parish, and they are guiding the boats through the water. And we come across, we're headed down to another address. And this lady comes out of her trailer home, which has survived the hurricane, barely, in pieces, but part of the rooms are intact. And she's waving us down. And she said, "Are you animal rescue?" And we said, "Yes. Are you okay?" And she said, "I've been waiting for you." "Okay, what's wrong?" She says, "No, I'm ready to leave." And I said, "Okay, tell me what's going on." She says, "Well, they came for me last night, but I wouldn't leave because they wouldn't take my pets." I said, "I'm waiting for the animal rescue team." And she had a 16-year-old dog and 2 cats that she rode the storm out on. And she was not leaving. The 16-year-old dog had to be picked up to be taken outside for restroom breaks. But she said, "I'm not leaving my pets. They said I had to leave them behind for you, but I stayed. I waited for you. I knew you'd come." And so if you go to the ASAR Training and Response Facebook page, you see a picture of us evacuating her. You see her in the back seat with her 16-year-old dog. And but she waited. She waited that extra day because she was waiting for that animal rescue team. And, the ACOs were awesome. It could have been a very different story if they had, encountered her on a hot day. It might have been, hey, you really need some help. But this lady, she was ready to go. So
if you're watching, don't wait for Eric to show up. Leave.
Right.
Evacuate.
So don't wait for the animal rescue team. But she was very, very steadfast that she was not leaving without her pet. So that was the best story of the trip.
I love it.
Well, I also have a happy story. This is Hurricane Ike, Ida's evil twin brother. So Hurricane Ike, I don't remember the year, but we'd gone into Galveston and had set up, I believe it was like a library or something. And so we were setting up a temporary shelter and pulling animals who had been left on the island. The island was not open to owners coming back in. So we were going and feeding in place or pulling animals if we found them. And we went into this one house, and the house is down there. I'm in California, so it was new to me. The houses are all somewhat raised. And so this house was raised, and the bathroom was a little bit on a higher level. And when we got into the house, we found, and the water had gone all the way up to pretty much the roof of the ceiling. And when we got into there, we heard something. We went into the bathroom, and there was 3 pit bull puppies in the bathroom, and they were you could tell that they had stood on the back of the toilet to wait out the floodwaters. And so as the waters were receding, they were able to get down. And that was the only way that we could figure out how they survived, because the water had, like I said, had gone all the way up. So they somehow survived. We brought them back to the shelter. I have a cute picture of me holding these little puppies. I think they went back to Lollipop Farm, if I remember correctly. They were transported. But that was one of those, uplifting stories. Like, oh, it was just nice to see them,
Oh, amazing.
I think for me, not a specific story, but every time, I joke about it, but we do deal with activations and hurricanes here quite a bit. And the way that the county government, not a lot of people think about county government as a collaborative effort. There's 57 different lines of business here in Pasco County, but it's really cool to see when an activation happens, when an emergency happens, how the different entities work together to help people in our community, which is really cool. For instance, a great example, we work closely with the public transportation department, and they call us, hey, we might be getting activated. They call us and we drive out crates for them to put on their buses so that they can safely, transport individuals with their pets to the emergency shelters. The day after an evacuation, we're out. Hey, there's dogs and cats out in the community. We're going out with code enforcement on their boat because we don't have a boat, and we're going through the floodwaters in West Pasco to help, with code enforcement, and just the different entities within the county coming together and realizing, yeah, I may work in facilities on Monday and you may work in code enforcement on Tuesday, but when push comes to shove, we come together as a community. And for me, that's always the coolest part.
That's awesome. All right, we're going to wrap up. We're going to go backwards through everybody. We're going to start with you, Eric. So pressure's on you to start off. I want you to give your one last piece of advice and then tell people where they can learn more about Code 3.
Yeah, take them with you. If at all possible, we always tell them, take your pets with you if at all possible. That's probably the biggest issue. And I know it's not always possible. That's why I have a job. But it does make it easier no matter what to take them with you. You can see more about Code 3 at code3associates.org, or you can check out the Code 3 Associates on Facebook page. You can also see more of the field work at ASAR Training and Response Facebook page, or asartraining.com.
Fantastic. Thank you, Eric. Connor, you.
So for me, it goes back to microchipping. When we have an emergency evacuation or emergency activation and we get misplaced pets, 90% of those pets come to our shelter without a microchip. Of the 10% that come in, almost 90% of those have an outdated microchip without updated information. And so that's the biggest thing for us is, I agree with Eric. Number one was going to be take him with you, but since, he got to go first. So mine is,
sorry,
you have to have your, if you paid the $15 to get it microchip, you might as well keep it updated, so that's, to me, is the biggest thing is we as animal services, we don't want your pet. We want you to keep your pet. And so help us out in that by keeping that information updated, please.
And tell us where you can find more information about what you do.
www.mypasco.net/PAS, Pasco Animal Services. And I am on the NACA board, but I don't want to steal Jerica's the NAC. She runs NACA, man. I just go to board meetings. She runs NACA. So you can also check us out on nacanet.org.
And what a great segue into you, Jerica.
Into Jerica.
I know. Let's see. I think definitely heat evacuations warnings, of course. And then I think I've said this before, but just be prepared. Follow through, pull it together, put together your kit, have it ready, and go when they tell you to go. And so, yeah, Spencer, www.nacanet.org. And we are working on revamping our disaster page. So we've made our disaster page it'll be a hub, a ton of resources available. So NACA is not a responding agency. We do not send people into the field, but our strength is in our membership, and our strength is in our communication abilities to our membership. And so we are able to share information and to really help, whether it's get responders down to Louisiana if necessary, by putting it out to our members, or and helping to facilitate, groups that they can respond through. So yeah, definitely check us out, and thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys. And I'm Lauren Clemens. I'm CEO, co-founder of Pet Hub. That's pethub.com. My piece of advice is going to be get an external ID tag on your pet. I guarantee it will help them get home much faster, and make it a digital ID tag. It's preferably Pet Hub. It's a free service, has a free 24/7 call center. Check us out at any time. You can also learn more here on our Facebook page. Thank you so much to to you folks from Code 3, NACA. You're doing incredible work. We hope to have you guys back soon. And everybody, stay safe, be prepared, and we'll see you later.